Welcome everybody, thanks for coming. I'm here to talk about Mantra Venture Group, a company based out of Vancouver, Canada, our technologies and particularly some of the activities that we're starting up in Bavaria. So Mantra Venture Group was established in 2007. It's publicly traded on the OTC. And it was established to take clean, innovative technologies and move them towards commercialization. And we're doing that right now through our subsidiary, Mantra Energy Alternatives. We're developing two technologies that I'll talk more about in a second. We're based in Vancouver, as I said, and our research facilities there, we have about 13 employees, including 10 full-time research staff, most of whom have PhDs from the University of British Columbia, who we work quite closely with. So I'll talk quickly about the team we have. We have a very talented management team headed by Larry Christoph, who is the founder and CEO. He has over 20 years of experience in entrepreneurship and management and has a history of successful technology commercialization. The balance of our management team is made up by some very highly educated engineers and scientists. Our advisory board is essentially the who's who of the electrochemical research industry. And we have a variety of partners and collaborators in industry, in research and development, and at universities. I won't go into too much detail about that, but notably Alstom is a large energy infrastructure company based in Europe, and Lafarge is the largest cement company in the world. So I'll give you a brief overview of what these technologies are. The first one is called ERC, the electroreduction of carbon dioxide, which takes CO2 pollution and converts it into high-value chemicals. So instead of releasing it to the atmosphere, we can make something useful out of it. The second one is called MRFC, or mixed reactant fuel cell, which is a novel type of fuel cell. It's never been designed before, that we're bringing to market, and it's looking to reduce the cost of fuel cells by 60 to 80%. Now, both of these have incredible independent business cases, but they can also be integrated together to provide something called energy storage, which is the hottest topic in renewable electricity right now. So the ERC technology, electroreduction of CO2, the problem, as I'm sure most of you are aware, is the mass emission of carbon dioxide gas into the atmosphere. There's a wide variety of industrial processes that do this, including power production, cement production, steel production, etc. And this is happening on such a massive scale that CO2 is accumulating in the atmosphere, absorbing energy, causing the atmosphere to heat up, and causing climate change, irreversible climate change, the consequences of which are uncertain. And this is the greatest environmental challenge that society has ever faced. And as a result, you see all sorts of headlines limiting coal pollution, carbon emissions trading schemes, carbon taxes in places like China, where CO2 emissions are at the all-time highs. But the way Mantra looks at this is not only as a massive environmental problem, but one of the greatest business opportunities in environmental history. And that's what these last two headlines sort of start to touch on, is the concept of carbon capture and utilization, which is taking that CO2 and converting it into useful things, useful chemicals, plastics, etc. And you can see on the bottom right there, this is the oil industry in Alberta taking a serious interest in the concept of converting CO2 into useful chemicals. So this is what Mantra is doing. We have a technology called ERC, which converts CO2 emissions from flue gas into high-value chemicals. And so what we're doing is taking that CO2 that's right now this massive pollutant and a waste stream, and we're turning it into a resource, where resources are becoming more and more scarce. So these are some of the chemical products that we can produce from CO2. So they range from things like formic acid and formate, which are industrial acid chemicals, to carbon monoxide, and then which is the basis of essentially the entire chemicals industry because it's a component of synthesis gas. Then there are other, large commodities like formaldehyde and hydrocarbons like methane. All of these chemicals have existing industrial markets and high value, which is really the key here, because you need to be selling something that's a high value to recover the costs of capturing and converting that CO2. And this is one of the real advantages that Mantra has. One of the other really interesting advantages of this technology is how versatile it is, because you can take CO2 and produce any one of those chemicals selectively just by changing the catalyst in your reactor. So we're going to capitalize on this through owning IP. We're going to license the technology to adopters, large emitters like cement plants, for example. So that's the first revenue stream, is licensing of the technology. We have a very talented engineering team that can provide consulting services for the construction of plants and reactors. Provide very important process components that we have IP on within the reactors, and then take royalties on the sale of chemical products that are produced from CO2. Obviously, intellectual property is very important here. We have a patent, essentially the first patent for a continuous reactor to do this was ever applied for. It's been issued in actually 4 countries. Canada has been awarded as well recently. And we're just in the final stages of review in the US and Europe. This is a really important process patent, and we've supplemented that by doing another additional 5 applications over the past year for different process components. So all that's based on lab research, but we're currently taking the step of moving into industry. So we're deploying the world's first pilot plant for the demonstration of this technology in industry. So what we're going to be doing is taking CO2 from Lafarge's flue gas stack and converting it into high-value chemicals, including formate and formic acid, on site. Lafarge is an amazing partner to have because they're such a big customer and they have such a big CO2 problem that they could keep us busy for the rest of time. So this is going to be, as I said, the first time to continuously process industrial emissions. And the first demonstration of this. We have Lafarge, we have Alstom working with us on this as a technology development partner. NORAM and BC Research are contracted engineers. Kemira is a Finnish chemicals company that's looking at working as an off-taker. And PowerTech is a subsidiary of BC Hydro, which is the power utility in BC. And then this next picture just gives you an idea of what this thing's going to look like when it's on site at Lafarge. We've positioned it right beside the flue gas stack so we can get as much CO2 as we need. And then specifically, so those are sort of our Canadian activities right now, developing that pilot plant and bringing it online. We've also been expanding because this problem is global. There are opportunities all over the world. So we've been looking at a variety of jurisdictions. Bavaria has turned out to be one of the most compelling for us because they take CO2 emissions very seriously and they're making huge investments into their reductions. So you can see they're already very low, down back in the early 90s at 7.5 compared to the rest of Germany and the US. But they're dropping them, and that's through investment and technology development. So they want to be 50% renewable electricity by 2021, and that's another reason that sustainable attitude is another reason that we established a GmbH in Munich over the past month. And we have not wasted any time in getting active there. We're currently in the final stages of just setting up a project with a brewery in Bavaria called Einger. And we're going to take their CO2 emissions and convert them into a new chemical that I won't get into the details of it right now, but different chemical than what we're producing at the pilot here in North America. So this is going to be the first European demonstration of the technology, and we're targeting some really big funding opportunities out of the EU and out of Germany and Bavaria. So just to touch on the competition, we have a series of what we call indirect competitors, and they're indirect because they're also trying to address CO2 emissions by doing something with them, but they're not producing the same chemicals we are. And the real advantage we have over these groups, such as Skyonic and Calera, is we're producing high-value chemicals. Skyonic and Calera are producing very low-value, low-energy chemicals like bicarbonates, whereas Mantra is producing high-value chemicals like formic acid, synthesis gas, etc. And we see this as the only way to profitably address the CO2 problem. We do have 2 direct competitors. One of them is called Liquid Light, and the other one's called Dioxide Materials. We have the first IP on these processes, and we'll be the first to demonstrate in industry, which has its own associated IP that will come with it. Just to map out the next few months, we've launched the detailed engineering and the procurement of pieces for the pilot plant that's being built in BC. Plant construction is set to begin within the next couple months. We're going to commission the pilot early next year and be operating it by the end of the first quarter next year. And then we're looking at going into early license adoption based on the results of this pilot. And then later in 2015, we hope to launch our Bavarian pilot. So that covers the first technology. That's the ERC technology for the conversion of CO2. Our second technology also comes out of the University of British Columbia, also an electrochemical technology. It's a new type of fuel cell called a mixed reactant fuel cell. So a fuel cell is essentially a clean energy supply that uses fuel, conventionally hydrogen, and converts it into clean electricity without the pollution associated with something like diesel fuel. And these are very compelling because it's a clean energy supply that can fit into a wide variety of markets, such as automotives, industrial vehicles, backup power, distributed power, all these sorts of things that things like diesel fuel are usually associated with. Fuel cells have had a difficult time getting off the ground for the past 20, 30, 40 years because of high costs associated with them and difficulties associated with hydrogen as a fuel. But even yet, we see a lot of interesting trends such as Toyota moving away from batteries back towards fuel cells because of their obvious advantages over batteries. And then, you know, these public fuel cell companies like Plug and Fuel Cell Energy getting a lot more momentum because people are seeing the value in investing back in fuel cells. So what Mantra is offering is a design of a fuel cell that has never been brought forward before. It's a mixed reactant fuel cell. It's a fuel cell without a membrane. And the membrane is the most expensive and the most failure-prone component of a conventional fuel cell. There's been a lot of problems associated with lifetime and cost because of the membrane. So this fuel cell eliminates the membrane. Another advantage is that we use liquid fuel. One of the problems with conventional fuel cells is the use of hydrogen. It's difficult to store, it's difficult to transport, and as a result, we've moved towards liquid fuels for this technology. Liquid fuels are much easier to store and transport. We already have the infrastructure in place to do so with gasoline and diesel and other liquid-based fuels. Because we've eliminated the membrane and we're using liquid fuels, it vastly simplifies the architecture of the fuel cell. It allows us to make it smaller, more compact, and the balance of plant becomes smaller as a result. So what we're looking at here is something that's going to be actually more energy dense than conventional fuel cells because of significant volume reductions. So we're looking at a 60 to 80% cost reduction in the cost of power from fuel cells, and we're by and far and away the world leaders in this technology. We've demonstrated the highest current density for a mixed reactant system of all time, and we've only made progress since then. So this fuel cell can fit into all the same markets that conventional fuel cells do. We're looking at capitalizing on this through direct sales, manufacturing, and licensing of the technology. The patent has been awarded in the US and the UK. It's patent pending in Canada, and we have the exclusive worldwide license for the technology. So what we're looking at doing right now with the MRFC is doing the first application and demonstrating its use in something practical for the first time. We plan on scaling up to a 1 kilowatt stack to demonstrate some energy storage applications next year. I won't go over the competition. It's sort of the conventional fuel cell producers, and I just elaborated on the advantages that this fuel cell has. And so then moving on from there, as I said at the beginning, while these things both have amazing independent business cases, they have this third concept that arises out of the integration, which is energy storage. And energy storage is recognized by a lot of people as the biggest challenge in clean energy right now, because clean energy supplies such as solar and wind are intermittent, which means they're not producing all the time. It's difficult to match supply with demand. So if we can store electricity, it makes things a lot easier for integration of renewables into the grid. And as you can see at the bottom, energy storage market looking to reach 25 billion by 2021. So what Mantra is offering is a integrated solution for energy storage, whereby we take CO2. When we have renewable electricity, we convert it into chemicals like formic acid. And formic acid has the amazing advantage of being an excellent energy carrier. So we can recover that energy with the fuel cell whenever we need to. So we can either use the Mantra mixed reactant fuel cell, or we can look at reforming formic acid to produce hydrogen for conventional fuel cells. And at the same time, we have conventional industrial applications for formic acid. So I'd like to wrap it up there just by saying that we're looking at tackling some of the world's biggest challenges, and I think we have the right technologies to do it. So please, any questions, I would be happy to answer them either now or later.
Do you have any revenue-producing projects right now?
Yes, we do. We actually have revenue from some of our industrial partners doing research for them on the process.
Are you financed up to date, and what are the financing requirements in the future?
I'll let Larry talk about that.
Sure. Yeah. Hi. We have done our financing primarily through our public vehicle Mantra Venture Group, which is an OTCQB listed company. We have done some small raises through a tax incentive program through our subsidiary as well.
How much have you raised?
Approximately $9 million. And we're, just to answer your question about revenue, we're currently generating about $60,000 in revenue
Most of our staff is subsidized by the Canadian government, so we get our PhDs at a very interesting cost basis. We are tapping into these new projects are all looking at tapping into things like the Horizon 2020 program that you probably heard about this morning.
Of these projects, which one's most likely to start generating revenue first in terms of the uptake?
Well, the ERC technology right now, the minute it's demonstrated in an industrial setting, there's already suitors at the door for early license adoption. There's actually suitors at the door for a buyout. But so I would say ERC is certainly, yeah.
In terms of timing, actual
timing is well, the launch for the industrial demonstration is commissioning begins January, February. Frankly, there'll probably be some hiccups to I would say by second quarter that we see some significant opportunities come into play. As well, we are looking at additional funding to support some of these activities. We have some commitments from some institutional as well as some strategic and some high net worth. But we're always looking at adopting the right partners for financing. Is there anything else?
All right, well, we'll be around all day. Talk to us later. Thanks a lot.